Because there's different skull shapes. The
Oh my
racial
God! Now
differences,
we're going to do
the
phrenology.
racial, the
Really?
racial differences is not simply skin color. I can show you the skull shapes.
He's sitting there with the freaking the measuring thing for your skull. He's like measuring out your skull.
As far as what you're
Racial
you said before.
identity. Racial identity. They're happy to have dumbasses come on and talk about fucking skulls and skull shapes and shit. They're happy to have that happen. But
Yeah,
why
but
is it
not
that,
so
that
different
her
that
skin color
she's-
was slightly darker or more
It's not-
Hispanic that it would be immoral for me to breed with her?
Because there's different skull shapes.
Oh my God! Now we're going to do phrenology.
The
Really?
racial differences is not simply skin color. I can show you the skull shapes.
He said
of
it.
the
He said
Caucasian,
it.
of the Mongoloid, the Negroid, and the Caucasian have very different skulls, and they can tell the skulls when a person dies and decays. You can tell what type of race they are by their skull shape. I can show you the pictures of that.
Andrew, I have to say this. This is the guy who, if he got whatever he wants to determine which section or ethnostate you go to, he's sitting there with the freaking the measuring thing for your skull. He's like measuring out your skull, and then he's saying, "Okay, you go that way." Oh my gosh!
Anthropologists, how do you
It's
think
you,
they know?
bro.
How do you think they know the different racial groups by their skulls and their ancestors and all this?
Keep
all
moving
this
forward.
investigation?
It's
How
an
do they know
interesting point. It's an interesting point. Phrenologists did used to believe this, and you believe those anthropologists because they're scientists. But why don't you believe the current anthropologists who say it's all bullshit?
Because it's not all of them who say that. It's about 50% in the Western world of anthropologists reject race and 50% don't. Most Eastern European anthropologists acknowledge race, and most Chinese ones acknowledge race as well. It's this post World War II political correctness that took over the universities that started to promote this, largely Judeo-Marxists. I mean, I can get their names for you, but they started, even some of those people like Ashley Montagu, he admits in his book that there are different races. He just tries to use all this funny logic to try to deconstruct it. He says there's genetic clusters. He just tries to use euphemisms.
Nobody disputes genetic clusters. What I'm telling you is that there has to be a viable solution going forward that's actually realistic and tenable. Ethno-nationalism is not that solution, and it hasn't been that solution because there's no ethnos in the United States for that solution. There never has been.
There is an ethnos. The ethnos is European descent. And
but it didn't start. It started as British.
Who cares? It changed over time.
It changes over time.
So look, it changed over time because initially there was a bit of snobbery when it came to the Anglo-Saxons. They want to keep out like Catholic Irish and Catholic Italian. That was a more cultural snobbery. Okay, that was stupid, and they changed their view on that, and it became more unified over time. But I promote, a white unity across the board. But this, I wanted to just bring this up. So look, these are the different phenotypes of people. Can you tell the difference between these people?
Of course.
How?
By their facial structure, skin color, everything.
Okay, so that would be impossible if this wasn't there weren't real distinctions between these groups, right?
Nobody said that there was not physiological distinctions between human beings. The claim was never made.
Well, you're saying racial categories are illegitimate as far as what you're
racial identity, not categorization of clusters.
Why would it be illegitimate? That's like saying subspecies of animals is illegitimate.
Then. Like you said with animals cannot pick an ethnicity. When you're talking about ethnicity, you can make whatever your physical characteristics are your entire identity and therefore your culture if you choose to. I just think it's a fucking stupid idea.
It's not a stupid idea, and people have done that for centuries. People have done that for centuries. They have made an identity around based on how they appear, how they look, and they've used that genetic similarity to form an identity. This is the cluster map where you have North and South European.
Yes, I've seen all of this before. I watched it live being presented, something very similar to this with Jared Taylor.
So this is the European cluster, and even the MENA people, Middle East, North Africa, they have different ancestral references. They have a bit of a different contribution to them. They have been classified as Caucasian by some anthropologists, and they're broadly in the Caucasoid, but they are somewhat different. So I would draw the line at European descent. And the issue a lot of people have is that, there is a bit of a gray area, when you look at one race going into another, but it's the same gray area between one ethnicity and another, right? So it will be an arbitrary line, just like on a color spectrum, you don't know exactly where
an arbitrary line. And so we have to default to ethnicity.
Interesting.
Is that if you want to make your race your identity and you're a racial identitarian, that you would have to draw the line somewhere for your racial identity. Okay, I'm not even going to dispute that. I just don't care about it. I don't think it's useful. I don't think it's going to do anything long term for you or for I. What do you think that's going to do for you exactly?
Well, it will preserve a high culture in the West. I don't think
culture. Culture.
But it's linked to genetics. I don't think we can just transport Somalians into Germany and expect it to be the same state of affairs. I think
nobody does. Nobody thinks that.
But why would it decrease?
Because it takes time for cultures to integrate.
Okay, so how long will it take before Somalians are on the same level as Europeans?
I have no idea. With Hispanics in the United States, it takes about 3 generations or so. The left, what they consider race realism, is the IQ, the IQ and racial differences, the misshapen skulls, the blah 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 blah. They're happy to have dumbasses come on and talk about fucking skulls and skull shapes and shit. They're happy to have that happen. Okay? As happy as can be to have that happen. Part of how you tell different races apart are their cranial morphology. This is literally forensics and anthropology. Okay, let's grant it. Let's grant that all of that's true. Doug, we're just going to give it to you, just like I did for Mio. What the fuck do you want to do about that, Doug? What do you want to do about it, man? Do you want to round up 48 million black people and send them to Liberia, Doug? You think that's a good fucking idea, Doug? Because it doesn't sound like a very good idea to me, Doug. I don't think it's going to work out real well. So let's just grant it. Let's just grant for a second the argument is true. Now what? Okay, everybody's accepted it. Now what do we do, Doug? Don't know? Don't know what you're going to do about it, Doug? You can't say, oh, hey, I reject scientism and then embrace the scientism that, fits whatever your fucking, worldview is or whatever. That logically doesn't make sense. Also, you have to logically contend with the question of, is culture inherent to race? Look, you can't do this crazy ass race realism message. You can't do it. You're going to get just fucking destroyed on this if you keep on going with it. So again, let's just grant it. Let's just grant that it's true. Just for the sake of argument, we grant that it's true. Even if you 100% had the best proof on fucking planet Earth, if you don't have reach because you get deplatformed, what the fuck is the point? Okay? That's a strategic mistake. A bad strategic mistake. It's just not true. Research it. Like, dive into it, man. Research the shit out of it. You'll find that there's a lot of scientific nonsense. There's a lot of bullshit behind it. I'm not doing a stream on that shit right now. I don't care. I don't care about it. I don't think it's that important, because even if I granted it and it was all totally true, 100% true, nationalism would still be the answer to it.